I know every coach in America says it, but we've had an awesome summer. We finished up our last workout of the summer this morning. So all of us as coaches, we were out on the field with our players this morning, finished it up last night with a team dodgeball tournament, players and coaches. So that was a highly competitive event last night, dodgeball. And then we had a team workout this morning and got some work in on the field, and then came up here for this. Our players will be off tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, giving them a long 4-day weekend to catch their breath. They've certainly earned it after the summer they've had. They've been up here since Memorial Day. Going at it with summer workouts. So they've really put the work in this summer, and then they'll be back in town on Tuesday, get a couple workouts in Tuesday, Wednesday, before we, Steve said, report on Thursday and practice on Friday. So looking forward to getting going. I know I don't see David here. I know his first question. He'll get the first question, and it'll be about the health of the team. Everybody's good as well, other than Zabari Sandu, who obviously had the knee injury back in spring practice. Everybody, as of yesterday, is good to go. And unless something happens this weekend, which pray to God that it won't, everybody is healthy and will be able to practice next week as well. A couple other things, obviously, with the rule passing in college football, where everyone is now able to coach and there's no limits on analysts. We certainly wanted to adjust some titles with some of our coaches that to reflect who they work with and help them with their career as well, that have been analysts for us. They've done a great job as analysts and earn it. So Trey Money, who works with our defense as an analyst previously, he is now our new assistant linebackers coach. Ahmad Smith, who has been here since 2021 with us, is now our assistant defensive backs coach. Kevin Hubbard, who joined us last season, as well as and works closely with Sterling and Travian. He will be the assistant defensive line coach. Greg Atkins obviously has been here since 2021 and has worked closely and been our offensive line coach and worked closely with the offensive line. He will be the assistant offensive line coach. Ryan Urachek, as well, will be our assistant tight ends coach. Tim McConnell, who we hired as a special teams analyst earlier this year, will be the assistant special teams coach. And then Mike Shula will be our senior offensive assistant. He works closely with everyone on our offense and brings great knowledge to that room. So those are things that, one, those guys have earned, but two, better reflects who they work with on our staff and what they do. So I know you were writing fast. I'm sure Steve will update that on the website so you can get all that as well. But those guys have certainly earned it and do a great job helping us and making our program better as well. So I'm excited about our staff, excited about our team. Can't wait to get started next week. I know you're eager to talk to our coaches. They're all here or en route if they haven't gotten up here yet already. And with that, I'll be glad to take any questions.
All right. I know you kind of talked about in the past, why you like this team, and I know it's at the end of the day, it's about going out there executing. Coach Saban talked a lot about just how close he feels like you guys are there. What would you tell this fan base that after obviously 2 years, great seasons, take a step back a little bit last season as you get ready for year 4?
I would say that I agree. We're not far off. I said that in Dallas, and I meant it. It's not coach speak. It's a thin line. And you look at every game in this league. We're the toughest conference in America, and every game in this league pretty much comes down to the fourth quarter. And we've got to find ways to make more plays in the fourth quarter than what we did last season and be able to finish games. But the way that we've recruited, the players that have come into our program from the transfer portal this year, we're a year older. We went through some growing pains last season. But I'm most excited just because of the people that we have in our program, Mike. They're hungry. They were not happy with last season, and we've got a core group of older players, leaders that came back for another season because last season left a bad taste in their mouth. And it wasn't they have something to prove. I think they realize how close we are. And we're not in the moral victories, but you look at some of the things we were able to do last season is proof that we're not that far off. Now we got to coach better and play better, but I feel like we've made the adjustments to take another step this year and excited to get started with that.
Shane, I know it's been a little over a week since media days, and I know it's really just talking season right now, but when you were there, what do you hope people took away from what you and the players had said, and then what this team can be in 2025 or 2024? Sorry.
Good question. I think that event's always tough because I see you guys pretty much every week, but there's a lot of guys that have not heard a thing that I've said since January, or really probably since November, in a lot of ways. So it's more just kind of an update, and here's what's going on in Columbia. But I would hope that the message that came out and from myself and the 3 players that were with me in Dallas last week is just the confidence that we have right now in this team, the hunger that this team has. The joy that a lot of these guys have about being a part of this program, and how eager we are to get started. You know, we don't base our decisions and our narrative based on what anyone on the outside, you know, thinks. There's a great confidence and hunger in our building, and I think our guys are very eager to get to work and get out there and start competing on August 31st.
Kind of looking at it in general terms, is this, neither done with summer workouts, is this about where you thought this team would be when you started summer workouts? Are you ahead in anything, behind in anything? Kind of where do you feel like this team is in the big picture?
Yeah, I think we're about where we thought. You know, obviously when you start the summer, it's you've a mix of freshmen that have been here since January, new transfers that have come in since January. Now they're kind of into their phase 2 because they had been there for 6 months at that point. Then you're adding some transfers that weren't here for spring practice. You're adding some freshmen that weren't here for spring practice. So it's a race in June and July to kind of blend those guys together and connect. So that was something that we wanted to get done and feel like we have, for sure. We certainly needed to get stronger and healthier, and feel like we have. Obviously, we've got a lot of work to do between now and the first game. August is going to be very, very, very critical. You know, we've got guys that will be practicing next Friday that we expect to be playing on August 31st that have never gone through a practice with us at South Carolina. So August is going to be a really critical month just because we do have a lot of new faces, but feel like we've taken the steps that we need to in July to put ourselves in the best position we can be going into August.
Hey, Shane, kind of on that subject of new guys who are going through their first practices here next week, what have you seen from those guys specifically? I guess the receivers and the freshmen.
The ones that just got here in June?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, good. You know, primarily the receiver position. You know, you talk about Vandrevius Jacobs and Dale Vaughn Campbell that have come in. I think they've had good summers, have gotten themselves in shape, have changed their bodies around and whatnot. Certainly we're excited about them based on what we've seen since they got here. The freshmen that got here, Michael Smith came in June. Jalewis Solomon came in June, and then Matthew Fuller came in June. I think all 3 of those guys are what we thought they would be, and are all guys that we have high expectations for as we go into this season, and we're going to do our best to get them ready to play early on for sure. So excited about those guys. They've flashed, and they don't look lost. They haven't been behind, in other words. When you watch them in the weight room, you see their skill set, and I know all of us as coaches are eager to get out there and get working with them next week.
Spencer was such a dynamic leader these couple of years. What do you think of your quarterbacks and how they're adjusting to kind of fill that role for this fall?
Yeah, I like the group. It was great that, you know, Lenoris, Sellers, and Luke Doty were in that quarterback room with Spencer every day last season. Lenoris got to see him, and I've equated it with you guys before. It's very much when I was at Oklahoma and Spencer was the backup to Jalen Hurts, and Spencer got to watch Jalen for an entire year, and then when Jalen left, Spencer takes over. And I think that was probably great for Spencer, and it was great for Lenoris to kind of see, you know, be in that same role. We'll see. But then when you add a guy like Robbie Ashford, who's played in SEC football games, and you got Dante Reno, you know, in there as well, that's a good group that Dow's done a good job with, and they all bring a skill set to it and to the room, and guys that we have high hopes for. So we're different in there. Spencer wasn't 240 pounds and couldn't run, you know, like these guys can. But they've worked really, really hard. I think they've all done a great job of making each other better and pushing each other and working together. And then August is going to be, you know, really, really big for all those guys to continue to take another step. Robbie will be more comfortable with the offense because now he's been through spring practice in the summer, and Dante is not a true freshman right out of high school anymore. So it's good. I like the group overall. I like the athleticism. They're talented, inexperienced in some ways, but bring a different skill set than what we've had in the past.
Hey, Coach, your offensive line was a group that took, its fair share of bumps and bruises last season. How do you feel about the depth going into summer camp this year?
Yeah, I don't think you ever feel like it's enough, particularly at that position. You always want, a lot more than what you have. And last year was essentially I don't want to say worst case scenario, but the number of injuries we had, it wasn't like we had more injuries than what we've had in the past. What we had were a bunch of injuries at one core centralized position that all the injuries typically happened at. And Tree and Tro got out there as true freshmen and battled. And Marquis Anderson would have played last year as a true freshman, but he was never healthy. And Kason Henry was our starting right tackle and got hurt in game one. And our starting left tackle tore his knee up in the spring game and never even got to the season. So it was just one of those things that we clearly didn't have enough depth last season, but we went through some growing pains, but we're going to be better for it now. Those guys are a year older, a year stronger, a year healthier. We've added some freshmen that I'm really excited about, and the guys that have come in that we feel like can help us without a doubt here as we with Blake and Cam and Josiah, that we're going to try and get ready, being able to bring in some transfers like Aaron Parks and Kamar Bell and Torricelli Simpkins. I like the group. There's a solid group in there that I think have position flexibility between center guard tackle, whatever it might be. And the key for us is going to be get into August, and Coach Teasley and the rest of our offensive line guys getting in there and figuring out who are our top guys and who we can go win SEC football games with. But I like the talent in that room, and I feel like we have more depth and experience than what we had in there last year. Now we got to do a great job of staying healthy.
Shane, it seems like internally expectations are higher than maybe externally for folks outside of the program. And is there anything about that is frustrating for you, for just kind of wondering what people aren't seeing that I'm seeing?
Not really. I worry about what I can control, and that's getting our team, along with our coaching staff and players, as best prepared to play on August 31st as we can. And winning takes care of everything, whether it be perception, narrative, recruiting, you name it. You go out there and do what we're supposed to do on the field, everything takes care of itself. And I just realize that it's truly, year to year as well. Perception out there, perception about us 365 days ago was completely different than what it is now. And what it was in August of 2021, it was completely different in August of 2022. So it really truly is just year to year, and worry about what you can control, and that's going and performing on the field.
If people weren't excited enough about Dylan Stewart, he posted the picture last night and folks got very excited. What has he done in the weight room the last couple months to get himself and his body into the spot that it's at?
Worked. You could see from that picture the work that he's put in, and not just him, but I think there's a lot of guys that could probably have posted pictures like that on social media of now to then as well. Credit, our strength staff, training staff, nutrition staff, because it all ties together, our guys being able to change their bodies and do things like that. But, like any freshman that comes in out of high school, you're going to get into a better nutrition program, better strength and conditioning program, and there's right away going to be some pretty natural and evident gains as well, and it certainly was with him. And he's a guy that went through spring practice and will be so much better for it now as we start practice next week as well, physically, and then obviously on the field, what he's got to get done.
SEC media voted Rocket Sanders to preseason All-SEC team, obviously remembering what he did at Arkansas. You said he's healthy, ready to go. So is he a guy you can possibly put in a special category as a running back and somebody who can really accentuate that area of your team?
Yeah, I think so. I'll say this first, too, Phil, that I really like all of our, backs. I was just talking to Jay and Terry outside from 107.5 The Game about that you bring back Juju, and DJ Braswell played some for us as a true freshman, but then you add Rocket, you add Oscar Attaway, you add Jawarn Howe, Matthew Fuller's coming in as a true freshman. That group is better, but certainly, when you look at Rocket and what he's done in his career, but particularly in the SEC, it's pretty impressive. And I mentioned it in Dallas, and it's true. I think people forget about the year he had in 2022. I know I had in some ways when we started trying to get him here to Carolina. You go back and you watch some of the stuff from 23, and he wasn't healthy and he didn't have the year that he wanted. But then you start watching 2022 tape, and you're reminded pretty quickly just the talent he has and the talent that he is. But there's no question he's one of the best running backs in the country, in my opinion, and has worked really, really hard since January to put himself in position to be the best version of Rocket Sanders that he's ever been. And he's really done a great job of that and still has work to do, don't get me wrong, but between him and the running backs around him, I'm excited about that group.
Shane, I did actually have one question. On the roster limit piece of it, I know it allows you guys to have up to 105, but do you guys envision having 105 scholarships? And up to that point, I mean, how do you guys envision breaking that actually down?
Don't know yet. And that's part of the conversation that I had with Coach Tanner. I don't know. I think those are all things that we're still working through as well, not just the University of South Carolina, but the SEC as a whole. The SEC, us as head coaches, pretty much stance was we don't want to lose walk-ons. So does that look like the walk-ons are now part of your 105 guys? I don't know. I think those are all things that are being decided at a level above mine as well.
Do you feel like the coaches had enough input in this conversation?
I do. No, we met with when we were down in Destin for SEC meetings. That was the 2 days that we were there. There were some pretty heated and thorough discussions about the roster numbers. And then our last day there, we had a session in the morning with all of the athletic directors, where it was every head coach and every head football coach and every athletic director in the SEC went in one room, and that was a pretty spirited conversation with the ADs. It was great, but the head coaches were very adamant about what they felt like we needed in order to have a roster the way we needed to have it in order to go win football games as well. And I appreciate the ADs, the presidents, the conference commissioners, everyone else that's making those decisions, understanding that. And we came in that meeting, I think every head coach, not just in the SEC, but probably across the country, just made it clear, like, here's why 85 isn't going to work if you're a college football program right now, and why we need it. Nobody's asking for 130, nobody's asking for 140, but 85's not the answer.
Yeah, I feel like we always get you at an interesting point here with the transition from summer to fall. You've had a few of these now. How do you feel compared to previous years? Just lessons learned, more motivated, more confident, comfortable? Just what's kind of the difference headed into this one?
I think every year's different. You understand the lay of the land better being year 4 because you've been through this and you know kind of what's coming next. But then you also realize that truly every single season is different because your roster turns over every year. There's new players coming in each and every season, and every year it's truly like a new season because you have so many new players. But, certainly confident, but I think I've learned every year. After 21, when we won 7 games and quote-unquote exceeded expectations, I learned that season. And then in 22, when we had the great finish that we had, beating Tennessee and Clemson and winning 8 games, I learned from that season. And then last year, record-wise, not being what we wanted, I've learned from that. And then I've learned since January until now. And certainly confident. I don't think you're ever comfortable. I don't want to be as well. You got to be uncomfortable in order to grow. I don't ever want to get comfortable. But I will say this, I'm extremely confident. And this being year 4, I've never, ever, ever been more excited about practice starting next week than what I am right now. I do know that for sure.
Coach, what does this golf tournament mean to you? And is golf a nice break from the gridiron? And if not golf, what do you do to get
Great question. I like more golf questions. Let's keep those going. I like you. This tournament's great. One, in all seriousness, not to get like sappy, but I appreciate these guys and ladies and the way they cover our program and the exposure they give us and the sacrifices that they make and coming into our football facility every Tuesday during the season to listen to me and cover our games. So I appreciate being able to be here with these guys and give back to them for sure and let them get to know our coaches a little bit better. It's memories coming up here because this is where I feel like I played every single morning at 8:30 a.m. when I worked for Steve Spurrier. Every single morning that I worked at Carolina, I feel like we were at Cobblestone at 8:30, and he used to get mad at me because Puggy Blackman, our old golf coach, would be out here, and I'd grab Puggy and get him to work with me on the range every morning before I went and played with Coach Spurrier, and he used to get mad because I was getting a lesson from Puggy before we teed off. But I love golf. I wish I got to play more. Don't get to play enough, but I love it. It's keeps the competitive juices flowing, able to get outside, get exercise, can include my family in it, play with friends. Fortunate that we've hired some new coaches this year that like golf, so we've got more golfers on the staff, which is always a good thing as well. But I love being able to get out and compete, and there's not much golf left in my season. I probably won't touch a club again until February at the earliest, so I'll watch a lot of golf on television between now and then, but I do enjoy it.
All off season up in the upper state, all we've heard about is not Clemson not wanting to play on the last game on a Friday and all like that, though. If the SEC and ask you to come or ESPN and play a game for South Carolina on a Thursday, a Friday, a Monday, or whatever, what would your thoughts be on that?
If it was in Columbia, certainly I want to always do what's best for the fans, and that's something that Coach Tanner and I would talk about as well. In this instance, the one that you're referring to, I had some conversations with Dabo about it. I think Coach Tanner had some conversations with Graham Neff, the Clemson athletic director, about it, and them as the home team. That's the direction that it ended up going as well. I think it's a great rivalry. It's one of the best rivalries in all of the nation. I like the idea of being able to create even more exposure for it. I can remember the night before we beat Clemson 2 years ago, sitting at the hotel in Greenville and watching Florida and Florida State play on a Friday night and just thinking to myself, man, the whole country's watching this game right now, and that's great exposure for this rivalry. So I think there's some positives to it, some things that aren't maybe positive about it. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm not trying to dodge the question, but I always want to do what's best for the fans as well and make sure that we know that stadium in Clemson and Columbia will be rocking every single year whenever we play it, and let's do what's best for us being able to win the game, but then also for our fans as well, for sure.
August 1st.
Not a whole lot. We've got a camp tomorrow, so we'll be right back at it. A bunch of high school prospects coming in that we get to work with. I think George Wynn, our associate athletic director for football operations, told us the other day I think it's close to 300 young men that'll be here tomorrow for camp, which is huge. So excited to get. We'll be able to kind of knock the rust off as coaches, get out there and coach a little bit tomorrow and get us ready for next week. And then as soon as that camp ends, we have a big recruiting event with some top prospects that are coming in from across the country that we'll be able to spend some time with tomorrow afternoon and evening. So that'll be well. And then giving everybody kind of a long weekend, players and coaches, just so we're fresh and ready to roll next week. So we'll see. I don't run the show in my house at all, so we'll check with the family and see what they have going on as well. But get some good family time in this weekend, and then because it'll be our last true weekend off till I don't know when. It'll be a while to have a Saturday and a Sunday where you're not in the office.
Yeah, Shane, kind of a big picture question. How do you feel about the direction of the profession in the sense that every year something new is being thrown at you? Roster limits, analysts who can now get on the field and coach, NIL, transfers, you name it. This is not your dad's, college football program. How do you feel about the direction that things are going?
Yeah, no, it's a challenge, and you mentioned it. I mean, there's so many things that are coming at us as coaches that are new. You didn't even mention revenue sharing and what that brings to the table now as well. It's so many new things coming, and then it's constantly changing. I mean, I've told the story before. I'll never forget, I got hired on a Saturday night when Coach Tanner offered me the job, and on Sunday morning I got a phone call from a current SEC head coach at the time and still currently that just said, congratulations, you just took a job in the worst year ever to be a college football coach. But the good news is that it's getting better and it's changing. And that was coming off of COVID is what he was referring to, the COVID season. But then I laugh at that because I think about since he left me that voicemail on that Saturday or that Sunday morning after I got hired on a Saturday night, how much has changed since then. I mean, it's amazing when you think about it. When you talk about the portal, NIL, revenue sharing and whatnot, roster limits, analysts being able to coach. It's a lot changing. I think a lot of things that have changed have certainly made the game better. And you've definitely got to be, Coach Spurrier used to say it all the time, like you better be flexible as well. And that's one thing that I've tried to do a good job of is just, understanding that things are changing. They're not going to be perfect. Don't lose sight of all the great things that are going on right now in college football and college athletics and the things that are changing, figure out how to make them all a positive for the University of South Carolina. And you can't spend a whole lot of time complaining and wishing and all that stuff. Figure out what it is and how to make it an advantage for you and keep moving forward each and every day is what I try and do.